and welcome to, I think this must be our third emergency meeting, maybe our fourth, and we're into I was going to say the last week of the lockdown, but I won't be premature on that. I'll say the fourth week of the lockdown. So I hope people are staying safe, and hope people are coping with the challenges that this poses for all of us. We begin with apologies. I've had no apologies received. Are there any apologies that have been passed on? Sandra says no, so we don't need to move that. Declaration of interest. Is there any councillor that needs to declare an interest in terms of the agenda items today? If not, we'll move on to confirmation of minutes. I have one set of minutes from the 9th of April 2020. I'll move and I'll ask for a seconder, please.
I'll second that, Phil.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Cashmore seconded that we confirm the ordinary meetings of the meeting held on the 9th of April. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 To the contrary, no. Passed. Petitions, there are no petitions. Public input. I had two requests for public input. The first was one in relation to item 8, accessible streets. That was declined under Standing Order 7.7.2 as it was only received this morning and it was therefore out of time. We have a second request from the Auckland Ratepayers Alliance, Jordan Williams and Joe Holmes, on the impact of the current financial situation on ratepayers. As per usual in public requests, I'll ask our presenters to limit their comments between them to no more than 5 minutes, and then we will have up to 3 questions if that is required. So I'll just actually, before I double check whether I've got Jordan and Joe on the line, can I ask Sandra to do a quick roll call to check that I know that we've got all our councillors online at the moment. Sandra, please.
Deputy Mayor Cashmore.
Present.
Councillor Bartley.
Present.
IMSB member Blair.
Present, yes, present, sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Casey.
Yeah, I'm here, Sandra.
Councillor Collins.
Yes, I'm present.
Councillor Combe.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
Present.
Councillor Dalton.
Present.
Councillor Darby.
Morena.
Councillor Filipaina.
Aye.
Councillor Fletcher.
Councillor Fletcher is there. I saw something from her to say that she had no sound at the moment. So it's no good advising Councillor Fletcher to ring in if she's having trouble with the Skype. But if somebody maybe can get hold of her, Sandra, maybe a little later, just to make sure that she is getting sound.
I actually do have Councillor Fletcher up, so I'm assuming that she is actually there at the moment. Councillor Henderson.
Kia ora.
Councillor Hills.
Kia ora, I'm here.
Councillor Mulholland.
Present.
Councillor Newman.
Good morning.
Councillor Sayers.
Yes, present.
Councillor Simpson. Councillor Simpson is online. We just have not got her at present. Councillor Stewart.
Yes, I'm here, thank you.
IMSB Chair Taipere.
Kia ora.
Councillor Walker.
Good morning.
With pleasure.
Councillor Watson.
Present, miss.
I like that.
Councillor Young.
Good morning, thank you.
All present.
Okay, thank you very much for that, and hopefully we've got Chris and Desley able to communicate, but they are apparently online. Right, so can I just confirm that we have Jordan Williams and Joe Holmes online, please?
Joe here.
Joe, are you by yourself or are you with Jordan?
I'm with Jordan. He should be online too.
Okay, we'll just check and give Jordan a chance. Are you there, Jordan? Okay, Joe, you might be doing a solo act then if Jordan's not online for some reason. So can I just ask you to begin your presentation, and if you could keep that within the 5-minute requirement, please.
I will do. So good morning, Your Worship and councillors, and thank you for hearing us from this morning. My name is Joe Holmes. I'm the spokesperson for the Auckland Ratepayers Alliance, and I hope Jordan is somewhere with me. He was the executive director of our sister group, the New Zealand Taxpayers Union. Unlike nearly every group you hear from at these meetings, we will be the one that is not asking you to spend more money. In fact, the contrary, with so many households having to cut their cloth to the new economic reality, so must the council. We wish to speak to 2 points. The first concerning equitable pay cuts in the council to recognise the seriousness of the current financial situation, and the second about a rates freeze to avoid more than $200,000 and 60 are paid more than $300,000. These staff don't just have massive pay packets, but they also have the luxury of job security. I looked this morning at comparable figures in the UK. There, the local authority with the greatest number of employees whose remuneration was in excess of £100,000 or 200,000 New Zealand dollars was Essex Council with 35 employees. Essex Council serves 1.4 million, about the same as Auckland. Compare Essex's 35 to Auckland's 218. We are soon to publish the Auckland Council Town Hall Rich List, listing these officials. It would be great to see many of them volunteer to take the lead of the Mayor and share some of the economic burden that is falling on ratepayers. Now onto the rates freeze. Since the outbreak of the pandemic, our Alliance and the Union have run a joint campaign calling on councils around the country to place a freeze on rates. We're extremely concerned that Auckland Council is still a business-as-usual mindset. Unlike taxes paid to central government, mostly on income, spending and profits, rates do not reflect the household's cash flow or ability to pay. That means councils are not well placed to stimulate the economy. To take more money out of Aucklanders' pockets in rates to stimulate the Auckland economy would be a false economy. It would be far better to get off the backs of ratepayers. And that applies to targeted rates too. The accommodation provider targeted rate needs to go if we are to see much of that sector survive this year. But more broadly, we're here today to call for a council rates freeze in order to ensure ratepayers, many of whom are now unemployed or facing cuts in hours, are not burdened with additional costs in the coming year. We understand this will require council to make cuts in spending in some areas, particularly since other income sources will be under threat. Unfortunately, any other pathway will simply saddle ratepayers with higher costs when they can least afford it. We have a number of suggestions of what is no longer needed, but the most obvious way to cut costs is payroll. Without naming names, the claims made year after year that we need higher rates to cover infrastructure investments have been dishonest when you consider that while rates income has increased by 30.4% between 2012 and 2019, staff costs have increased by 39.1% over the same period. With the government willing to fund shovel-ready capital projects, the capital expenditure is a bit of a red herring in terms of rates. The real question is, what are you going to cut? Wasteful or low priority spending? I think that's when you're going to cut wasteful or low priority spending, so that ratepayers know that you stand with them and not against them. Christchurch City Council is the only council in New Zealand that has higher liabilities per ratepayer than Auckland Council. Mayor Leanne Dalziel has found the room to commit to a rate freeze. If she can do it, so can you. We are happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Joe. That was just within time, so well done. You'd prepared that. Prepared to entertain up to 3 questions if there are questions today. Can you please indicate to me if you'd like to ask a question? So,
I've got one, Mr. Mayor.
okay, Deputy Mayor Cashmore.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for your submission, Joe. You're always consistent in giving us a good lecture from time to time, which is, that's absolutely fine. I just want to check with you that your Auckland Ratepayers Alliance understands the savings that Council has already made in operational expenditure over the past 10 years. You're aware that figure's the thick end of $300 million?
That's over 10 years, yes.
And you're aware that the capital program is there to fund key infrastructure, both social and networking, for our population growth, which is probably close to 40,000 per annum averaging the past 3 years.
Yeah, we understand that.
We therefore understand that those bring significant cost pressures to council, and that we are funding depreciation and the growing pressures of provision of infrastructure through CapEx, which has to pay interest on, which is an operational expenditure.
We understand all of that, yes.
Yeah, if I can, it's Jordan Williams here. If I can just jump in on that point, I think we certainly support the government's initiative to provide local government with funding for capital expenditure going forward in the short and medium term. But I think from a ratepayer's perspective, I mean since 2012, the nominal rates growth has been just over 30%. The nominal costs and staff has been 39.1%. It's very clear that as a proportion, the staff costs as opposed to the capital expenditure has actually been what's gobbled up most of the increases in the council's revenue. And what we're saying is that this year, the council needs to find savings. There actually is some slides to go with Joe's presentation, but with the problems with Skype, we've been unable to upload them, but I have emailed them to the meeting secretary.
Thank you. Second question, Councillor Greg Sayers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Joe, thank you for your presentation. The presentation focused a lot around the savings and making cuts, but I just wondered if the organisation had any comment about Council's ability to tweak or change its own regulatory duties and any stimulus that the Council could bring to the Auckland economy that way. Do you have a comment in that area at all? Thank you.
Jordan, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, probably the key message would be to get out of the way. I mean, if there are regulatory responsibilities of the council, now would be the time to take a very serious look at those, just like central government is doing, and seeing what are areas where we can get out of the way of businesses and households from being able to help them or get us out of this financial mess. That would be the main thing. Just in terms of stimulus, I think to re-emphasise Joe's point that it's a bit of a false economy to be rating Auckland as more, and of course rates aren't based on the ability to pay, in order to stimulate the Auckland economy. That would be a false economy, and so many of our members and supporters are themselves losing their jobs.
Thank you. Last question, Councillor Chris Fletcher.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is to Jordan Williams. As you know, Jordan, council, local government is a creature of statute, and we are struggling with the statutory timelines that we're required, in this case with an annual budget of the 30th of June. It's very difficult to get the quality of information we need with these extraordinary times. Would you be encouraging us to lobby central government to try and get an extension in some way? And the second question that you might care to answer on, do you understand the moves that council has made in recent years to try and move towards the statutory depreciation that is required of us? So I have those two.
Yeah, on the first one, yes, I absolutely support that. And of course, councils do have the ability to quite quickly get something before Parliament through a local bill. But from a broader perspective, the annual plan process probably isn't fit for purpose in these circumstances. I think all councils across the country are going to go through the current process, but then in 6 months' time, we don't know what the economic situation will be like, and it may actually be sort of like a second mini-budget round or annual plan adjustments halfway through the year. And obviously that's not reflected in the legislation, but now would be the time to think about that. I mean, Auckland also has some pretty unique challenges. I mean, I don't underestimate the challenge of your chief executive and CFO moving on in the coming months. We haven't put it in our presentation, but that's certainly something I'd encourage councillors to seriously consider. Obviously, it's up to those individuals, but that only increases the challenges of what are going to be tough decisions, not only between now and the finalisation of this annual plan, but also in the months to come as we see those economic consequences, which are now only forecasts.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move that
sorry, there was the second part to my
question about depreciation, Jordan.
Yeah,
missed that part.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly we've seen across the country a lot of councils sort of tap into that those funds set aside for depreciation and renewal. I must admit I'm not up to speed with the precise situation in Auckland, but aware of the general problem across the country. And I'd certainly encourage the council, and having had briefings on your meetings over the last few weeks, these shovel-ready projects are certainly to use what the government's offer to get as much renewal as you can to get the infrastructure into the best possible shape going forward.
Thank you very much. And we have put in bids, I think, up to $7 billion for the shovel-ready projects. That's probably about 3 or 4 times the amount of money that will be in the entire fund for the whole country. Look, I'll move that we receive the public input from Jordan and Joe and to thank for their attendance. And that's, sorry, that's Chris Fletcher seconding?
That was Chris Fletcher.
Yeah, seconded by Chris Fletcher. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Jordan and
Thank you very
Joe.
much.
We come